So, this past week, I saw a movie called Karate Kid Legends, and it wasn't good. What it did is it tried to follow a lot of the plot beats of the original, very successful Karate Kid movie. Kid moves to a new town, gets a crush on a girl, finds a bully, has to win a karate match. But it took away all of the substance from that movie, and all of the structure, and all of the development, and all the things that would have made it make sense. There was no development on the bully in this movie whatsoever. In fact, he just kind of disappeared at one point, so there was no build-up or satisfaction of the final battle at the end. There were none of the life lessons that were learned from the original Karate Kid movie, which was the entire point of it. It wasn't just about fighting in a match. One point I won't get over the fact that a movie hinges on a middle-aged man asking a teenager to train him for a boxing match using kung fu, who he also mixes with karate later on, and that after that man is injured in a battle, then the kid has to pay for him losing the match. That was Karate Kid Legends. But it got me thinking about modern movies today, and it wouldn't be saying anything new to talk about how bad they are, but I just noticed that every movie released today, or at least what is considered to be the mainstream blockbusters that we're all supposed to flock to the theater to go see and enjoy, are just worse versions of ones that came before. Karate Kid Legends, as I just mentioned, is a knockoff of the original film, just lacking all of the elements that actually made that film work. But what movie did I see before that? Well, Lilo and Stitch, for example. It was a movie that was supposed to follow the same plot of a girl who has lost her parents, who lives with her sister, who finds an alien creature who she befriends, but it lacked all of the substance and everything that made the world work. The nice animation from Chris Sanders from the original that was bright, showing Hawaii, is now swapped out for a dulled out filter version with none of the magic of the original from the look of it, none of the nuances with the characters, as a character like Jumba is just turned evil now, and it completely ruins the original theme of that movie. Ohana means family, family means no one gets left behind. In this movie, Nani leaves behind Lilo to go to college, so she gives her up to the state. So yeah, it completely ruined the entire theme and substance of the original. Now, funnily enough, the movie I saw before that was another knockoff of sorts, the Thunderbolts. Now, this movie, which was renamed in marketing to New Avengers, kind of riffed off of the first Avengers a lot, where there's a time when they wind up at Avengers Tower in New York, and somebody is sashaying behind a bar with a new drink and making their threats. There is a battle in New York. They are praised by the people who they've just saved, and they are announced as the new Avengers. So they were definitely calling back to the original Avengers movie. But the problem with that is, by comparison, Thunderbolts is a completely weak movie. In the Avengers, it was very skillful how they would match characters together to build off of each other so that they would be developed to the audience. Most of the characters had a specific relationship and dynamic to each other. The first Avengers is an incredibly tight film where each scene in the film is focused on the development of the world and the characters as individuals, so you care about them. Each of them has a depth to them. But when I watched Thunderbolts, when I got to the end of the movie, I'm like, who is this character? What is the relationship to this person? There were only two characters that got any kind of development at all. They didn't really go very far there either. While at the end of the Avengers, I was hooked on these characters. I knew who they were. I knew each of their individual dynamics to each other. At the end of Thunderbolts, I was completely lost. Some of the characters just were non-existent in the film. Others didn't even get a payoff to their arcs. It was a far inferior version to the first Avengers, and by being able to compare them one for one, it just showed me how much better these kinds of superhero movies used to be made. And they're saying that the Thunderbolts is this movie deserving of all this hype and praise when it came out. And before that, it was the Snow White movie coming out in theaters that just completely desecrated the original, decided that every element of it, including down to Snow White wanting true love and eating the apple because she wanted to make a wish, was problematic, and they blew up the entire story so it made no sense. It had none of the charm or the humor or the artistry of the original and was a complete disaster. They took the simple story of Snow White, made it overly complicated, and turned it into a train wreck. Come to think of it, even before that, there was another superhero movie, Brave New World, which a lot of people accused of having rip-off elements from earlier Captain America movies like Winter Soldier and just doing them far, far worse. And you have to consider at one point or another, look at all of these films released today that are just the same thing that came out before, but with all of the elements that made them work removed. It's crazy because they are making so many remakes and IP-based films and things that are just rip-offs of old things that it gives us a one-for-one comparison for what talent people had back in the day and the lack of talent that people have now. Or whether it's even just lack of talent or the fact that these are just made by producers and committees and they lack all of the heart of the original films. I should put it out there though, it isn't that these films are bad because they're sequels and remakes. As a lot of people say, why don't you just go see original films? Well, as we see with Ryan Coogler's Sinners, when an original film comes out, is well marketed, and is worthy of cinema, people will go see it. But here is the problem with Hollywood. It's not that there's so many remakes and sequels, it's that those ones are just the ones that make it so obvious how creatively bankrupt they are because we can compare them one for one with the original films, or the ones that they're riffing off of. The problem is the lack of talent, or the lack of use of actual creative people. Like, Pixar is coming out with an original film, Elio, and it is projected to bomb at the box office and having a $300 million budget. You know why it's gonna bomb? It looks awful. It looks like it is only for little kids and no one else. It does not look heartfelt. It doesn't have any kind of hook. It just looks like an awful film, even though it's an original film. It's not that people are just desperate for something original. They're sick of these remakes and sequels because they're so bad, but there's a lack of understanding that if you took these people who were making these sequels and remakes and put them on original films, whether that's creators or producers, whoever is responsible, those films would be just as bad. They just wouldn't have the nostalgia points that get more eyes looking at it like these films do. Like, it does seem that people are waking up a bit to how bad these films are. Lilo and Stitch got a massive opening, and that's on you guys. You guys shouldn't have done that, but I saw nothing but hate for the film online after it came out from people calling it out for misunderstanding even just the basic points of the original film. And now it looks at, despite getting that huge opening, it might not hit $1 billion. I spoke too soon. You guys just can't help yourselves, can you? We were almost rid of these things. These Disney remakes for these Renaissance films used to be guaranteed $1 billion, but now they continuously fall short because people are realizing these are awful films that actually disrespect the original. And by the way, if you really love those original Disney films, you should not be going to see the remakes. And as we are seeing with continuous bombs from Marvel, they've damaged that brand too. It is not guaranteed anymore that they can put out a superhero movie and it can sell a lot. It just isn't. They can't fall back on those things anymore. But what are they going to do? Just because they are going to be forced to move away from superhero movies and even eventually these remakes does not mean that they're going to be able to make anything good, because the problem is, from the beginning, not the fact that these were sequels and remakes and franchise films, but because they do not have the creative process behind the scenes that makes good films. All these people, whether it's incompetent people behind the scenes or producers who have no creative spark whatsoever, or who just don't even have like the morals behind the scenes to understand the basic themes of these movies and what worked from things from the past, they're not going to be able to apply anything good to original films and new IPs either. I've noticed something for a long time now, and I've had a hard time putting it into words. But if you look at films from the past, no matter what genre it is, no matter if it's an individual film or a franchise film, I just noticed films in the past used to be made differently. I couldn't put it into the words. They used to be higher quality. There used to feel like there was a spark to it. It used to feel like there was more talent going into it to make it feel more theatrical, entertaining, and feel like whatever the genre, didn't have to be a big bombastic blockbuster, could just be a romantic comedy or something. It felt like these movies would have been worthy to see for an outing at the cinema or something. And I couldn't put into words, like, how do I express to people what was different about films in the past that made it worthy of this stuff? And I think I finally realized it. I was reading a blog from an independent filmmaker, and she was talking about how a friend of hers was told to dumb down her script as she was doing a film because the studio said that it was too much for them to pay attention to. It was too much for audiences to pay attention to when they're on streaming, because they said streaming services have to be made so it can be played in the background. And what was explained in this blog is that basically it's shifted in Hollywood so that they just want you to be able to be on the streaming service as much as possible. So they don't want you on there just to watch a 45-minute episode and then move on. They want you on as much as possible. So if they can make it so things can just be played in the background while you're doing other things like ambiance day in and day out, then they want to do that, because the goal is just to be on the streaming service. And that's what they have moved from the cinemas, because they want people to be signing up for the streaming services because they saw how much money Netflix was making, and that is how Hollywood moved away from making theatrical experiences. And that made me realize something, that when I was watching Karate Kid Legends, it was like the movie was begging me to look at my phone. And I never do that, but it was like the movie wanted me to get out my phone because there was nothing really happening, nothing for me to pay attention to. And I realized that's why movies are made so badly now. It's all stuff that is made with the intention not to be a theatrical experience, but with the intention that all of this content will eventually just wind up as content for streaming services, background noise, stuff you don't have to pay too much attention to. So literally, the detail and the spark of creative spark that used to be put in films originally, that's not there anymore. So no wonder people are going to the theaters less and less. There's nothing worth seeing because it's not made worth to be seen. Not that people are paying that much for streaming services for all the crappy content they've got there. Hollywood is a dying industry. I see so many articles coming from the industry these days just complaining about the fact that they are dying, but they're not doing anything to fix themselves. And even as I know that they've swapped out people, like for the live action remakes, they have a new CEO, but they're still just as bad as ever. Hollywood is not going to change, I think. I think that it is going to kill itself on this stuff. So what can we do right now? Because film is my favorite art of all time, and I don't want to give up on it even if Hollywood has. So now is the time more than ever that we need to be working at our own craft and making our own films to come out where we actually respect these stories as films, and we're not trying to dumb them down just to be content for streaming services. I'm working on my own script. I've got 2 parts left to write, and then it can go off to the script doctors, and then we can get it made. And that's what I want to do, because the only thing that gives me any hope for the future of film right now is to think about independent creators going forward and getting our own films out and finding a way to market them to the mainstream public, because otherwise this is a medium that seems that, at least in the American industry, is just going to die because the people behind the scenes just did not take care of it. And that's just where we're at right now. But this is an entire ramble from me, but that's just what I wanted to get off my chest, because it's just so bleak, and I've gotten to the point where I'm tired of waiting. Like, what are we going to get next year in December? We're going to get Avengers Doomsday. I think that is going to be the final blow that kills Marvel as a brand completely, and they're not going to be able to make any more off of that. But what do they have in replacements of that? I mean, just a couple of franchises left, like Dune, I suppose, that they're still holding on to. Where are the original films on the horizon that is going to save this industry? It's not coming from them. It has to come from somewhere else. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to support my channel, please consider becoming a patron or a member. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.